This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes was adapted from the original radio drama written by Denis Greene and Anthony Boucher, which aired on December 10, 1945. High-Tech High Mesa Theater Department and Team Lemonade brings you Return to the Radio with Sherlock Holmes. This broadcast is brought to you by the lovely people responsible for the unfinished project produced by High-Tech High Mesa 9th grade. Have you ever struggled, faced adversity? Of course you have. Life is rife with difficulty. At this exhibition, students will be reflecting on a time of great adversity in their life and chronically how they have overcome these challenges in the form of books and art. Take some time to reflect on March 17th and 18th with the unfinished project. And now I know Dr. Watson's waiting for us, so let's go in and join him.
Come in.
Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening. You're quite mopped up tonight, I see. Overcoat, scarf, and gloves. Slip them all off and join me by the fire.
Thanks, Doctor. Quite a nip in the air tonight.
Yes, there is indeed.
Well, Doctor, I heard that tonight's story is centered around the activities of a brilliant and beautiful woman.
Yes, my boy. Her name was Irene Adler, but I never knew Holmes to refer to her by any other name than the woman.
She sounds mighty intriguing. How did you happen to meet up with her?
Well, I'll tell you the story from the beginning. One night, it was on the 20th of March, 1888 to be exact. I was returning home from a visit to a patient when my steps led me through Baker Street. Since my marriage, I hadn't seen much of Sherlock Holmes, and
You couldn't resist stopping by old 221B?
of course I couldn't. As I stood outside the well-remembered door, I looked up at the lighted windows and saw the tall, spare figure of my old friend pass twice in a dark silhouette against the blind. He was pacing the room swiftly, eagerly, with his head sunk on his chest and his hands clasped behind him. To me, who knew his every mood and habit, his attitude and manner told their own story. He was hot on the scent of some new problem. I rang the bell and a few moments later found myself standing before him.
Marriage suits you, Watson. You look in splendid shape.
Yes, Holmes, I'm feeling very well, thanks.
And in practice again, I see. You didn't tell me you've gone back into the saddle.
Oh, how do you know?
Elementary, my dear chap. If a gentleman walks into a room smelling of iodine, with a black mark of nitrate of silver on his right forefinger, and a bulge on the left side of his hat to show where he's secreted his stethoscope, I should be dull indeed if I didn't pronounce him to be an active member of the medical profession.
Same as ever, Holmes. By the way, I'm not interrupting you, am I?
Yes, you are, old fellow, but it's a most welcome interruption.
You're working on a new case?
It looks like it. This letter arrived by the last post today. It's undated and has neither signature nor address. Read it.
Let's have a look. They will call upon you tonight at 7:45.
A gentleman who desires to console you upon a matter of the very deepest moment. Your recent services to one of the royal houses of Europe has shown that you are one who may safely be trusted. This account of you we have from all quarters received. Be in your chamber, then, at that hour, and do not take it amiss if your visitor wears a mask.
Great Scott. It all sounds very mysterious. What do you imagine it means?
Look carefully at the note, Watson. What do you deduce from it?
Oh, let's see. Well, the man who wrote it was presumably well-to-do. Such paper couldn't be bought for under half a crown a packet. And it's peculiarly and stiff.
Peculiar. That's the very word for it. It's not an English paper at all. Hold it up to the light. You notice anything?
Yes. There's a large E with a small g,
Mm-hmm.
and a large G with a small t woven into the texture of the paper.
What does that suggest to you?
The name of the maker, no doubt, or perhaps his monogram?
Not at all, my dear fellow. The G with the small t stands for Gesellschaft, which means German for company.
And the EG?
That stands for Egria.
Egria?
It's a German-speaking country in Bohemia, not far from Carlsbad.
So the paper was made in Bohemia.
Undoubtedly, and the man who wrote this note is German.
How do you know that?
Observe the curious construction of the sentence. This account from we have from all quarters received. A Frenchman or a Russian would not have written that. It's a German who's so discourteous to his verbs.
There's your client now. I better go, Holmes.
Oh, no. Unless you have to.
Well, I could stay. I thought perhaps
Then,
that...
my dear chap, stay. By all means, I'm lost without my Boswell, and this promises to be interesting. I told Miss Hudson to let the masked visitor come upstairs unannounced. Come in. Good evening, sir.
You received my note?
Yes, indeed. Come in, won't you, and sit down. This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson. You may say anything before him that you can say to me. Whom have I the honor to address?
You may address me as, Comte Moncram.
How do you do, sir?
You must excuse this mask that I wear. The august person who employs me wishes his agent to be unknown to you. And I may confess at once that by the title which I have just called myself is not exactly my own.
I was well aware of the fact, sir.
You see, Mr. Holmes, the matter I'm about to discuss implicates the great house of Ormstein, hereditary kings of Bohemia.
That had not escaped me either, sir. In fact, if you will state your case, I shall be able to better advise you, Your Majesty.
How? How did you? Yes. I am the king. Why should I attempt to conceal it?
Why, indeed?
I shall remove the mask. There, Mr. Holmes. I have traveled incognito from Prague for the express purpose of consulting you.
Then, pray consult.
Briefly, the facts are these. Some 5 years ago, during a visit to Warsaw, I made the acquaintance of the well-known adventuress Irene Adler.
Irene Adler. We know of her, Your Majesty.
What can you tell us of her?
She is originally from New Jersey. She became the prima donna of the Imperial Opera of Warsaw, but is now retired, and she currently resides here in London.
Your Majesty, have you become entangled with this young person?
Well,
Was there a secret marriage?
None.
Compromising letters?
Well, yes, a few.
And now you desire to get those letters back?
Yes.
But no binding papers or certificates?
No.
Then I fail to follow, Your Majesty. If this young lady should produce her letters for blackmailing purposes, how is she to prove the authenticity?
There's a handwriting,
That could be forgery, Your Majesty.
but it was a private notepaper.
Stolen?
My own seal.
Imitated?
My photograph.
Bought?
But we were both in the photograph.
Oh, dear me. Yes, that's very bad. Your Majesty has indeed committed indiscretion.
Did you inscribe this photograph, Your Majesty?
Yes, Dr. Watson. I'm afraid I did.
Good gracious me.
Mr. Holmes, it must be recovered.
Perhaps if you were to pay enough, the photograph might be bought.
She refuses to sell.
Stolen, then.
5 attempts have been made. Twice burglars in my pay ransacked her house. Once we diverted her luggage when she traveled. Twice she has been waylaid, and there has been no result.
Oh dear, it's quite a pretty little problem.
It is a deadly serious one to me.
Your Majesty, what does Miss Adler intend to do with the photograph?
To ruin me.
How, sir?
Well, I'm about to be married to the second daughter of Scandinavia. She is the very soul of delicacy. A shadow of a doubt as to my conduct would bring the marriage to an end.
And Irene Adler threatens to send this photograph to your fiancée, I suppose.
Yes, and she will do it. Rather than let me marry another woman, there are no lengths which she would not go. None.
Are you sure that she hasn't already sent it, Your Majesty?
I am sure.
And why?
She said she would send it on the day my engagement is publicly announced. That day is next Monday.
Splendid. Then we still have 3 days. Your Majesty will, of course, stay in London for the present.
Yes, certainly. You will find me at the Langham Hotel, registered as Comte Moncram.
Just 2 questions before you leave.
Where are they?
Is the photograph large or small?
Quite large, and it was in a heavy frame.
And see. And what is Irene Adler's London address, please?
Bryony Lodge, Serpentine Avenue, St. John's Wood.
Thank you, Your Majesty. Good night, and I trust that we shall soon have some good news for you.
I am placing all my hopes in you, Mr. Holmes. Good night. Good night, Dr. Watson.
Good night, Your Majesty. Fascinating problem, Holmes. I wish I could help you with it.
You can, my dear chap. I shall be glad of your company.
Well, what's our first move, Holmes?
A good night's rest. We'll meet here 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
And then?
Then, my dear fellow, we will see what we can find out about Miss Irene Adler, late of the Warsaw Imperial Opera Company, and at the present residing in Briney Lodge, 17 Avenue, St. John's Wood.
Here we are at the gate.
Yes, and here comes someone hurrying down the pathway. Quick, behind this post. Listen.
Morning, Bert.
Top of the morning, Miss Adler.
Is my cab set for the ride to the park this afternoon?
Sure it is, Miss Adler.
Very good.
She's quite a woman, isn't she?
Yes. I believe I know her.
Really? Where from?
We once shared a dance.
You? Dancing? With an actual woman?
The softer passions are an admirable thing for the time, but not someone one should dwell on.
Perhaps not for you, but some prefer to enjoy such things.
And those who do lose themselves. Let's away. There's nothing more to learn here.
Well, Holmes, I guess the examination of Briney Lodge didn't prove very illuminating.
No, the residence represents the essence of a dignified suburbia, but tells us very little about the owner. I think a visit to the local public house might prove to be more instructive.
Well, our disguises shouldn't cause any suspicion.
That's why I suggested them. In the character of a couple of stable hands, I felt we might inspire confidence. This is a horsey neighborhood, and there's a wonderful sympathy and Freemasonry among the fraternity. Here we are. Better let me do most of the talking.
Yes, I will. I'm sure that your accent will be more convincing than mine.
Let's go in, shall we?
Well, what'll it be, mateys?
Half a bowl of malt, please. Or, that you, Charlie?
I'll have the same.
2 half of old and mild? Here we are, mateys. Here, that'll be a tenner.
Have a drink with us, Governor.
Don't mind if I do. I'll have a Guinness. You blokes new around here?
Ah, yes. We just come over from Clapham.
Clapham, eh? Well, here's looking to you. You wanted for jobs?
Yes, that's right. You were told Miss Adler across from Barney Lodge knew a new coachman in Greene.
Well, that's the first I've heard of it, but it might be true. Have you been over there to ask?
Nah, not yet. We thought we'd find something out about the girl first.
She's the prettiest young thing you ever seen under a bonnet, and that's a fact.
You know her, Governor.
Yeah, of course I know her. I used to drive a carriage. I did it before I came to work over here.
What's she like?
Well, as nice as the little lady as you'll find, chum.
Work you hard?
No, she lives quiet like. Goes out singing at concerts once in a while. Rest of the time's your own. She goes out for a drive in the park every day at 5, comes back to dinner at 6:30. Rest of the time is money for gin.
She ain't married, you say?
No, but she's got a bloke who comes in here to see her all the time. He's a lawyer, nice gentleman. Mr. Jeffrey Norton is his name. Good-looking fella. Wouldn't be surprised to see him spliced.
Sounds like a nice cushy job to me. Come on, Charlie. Let's go over to the house and see what's what. Much applies to you, John.
Good luck, mateys.
Good night.
And thanks for the Guinness.
Well, Holmes, now that we've eaten, perhaps you'll tell me your plan.
With pleasure, my dear fellow. And while I'm doing so, I'll proceed with applying the makeup for my new disguise.
Another disguise? What's it to be this time?
I think the character and appearance of an amiable, simple-minded, non-conformist clergyman would be most suited for my plan of entering Miss Adler's house.
You're going to try and enter, then?
I must, my dear fellow. I'm sure the photograph is in there. Miss Adler will return from a drive to the park at 6:30. We must be at Briney Lodge to meet her.
And what then?
You must leave that to me. I've already made my arrangements. There's only one point at which I must insist. You will not interfere, come what may. You understand?
I'm to remain neutral.
Yes. There'll be some small unpleasantness. Don't join in. It will end in my being conveyed into the house. As soon as I'm able to, I shall open one of the windows. You are to watch from the outside. When I raise my hand, you will throw an object that I shall give to you through the window and at the same time cry fire. You follow me?
Entirely, but what am I to throw?
Oh, it's nothing very formidable. Here it is.
Looks like a great big cigar. What is it?
An ordinary plumber's smoke rocket, fitted with a cap on either end that make it self-igniting. Your task is confined to throwing it through the window. When you raise the cry of fire, it will be taken up by quite a number of people. You might then walk to the end of the street, and I'll rejoin you in 10 minutes. I hope I made myself clear.
Perfectly.
Good. And now, old fellow, as soon as I've donned my clerical attire, let us go on our way. There's no time to be lost.
It's nearly 6:30, Holmes. We've been pacing up and down in front of our house for half an hour now. I hope she does come back.
I'm sure she will.
There seems to be a lot of loafers hanging around her gate.
All part of my conspiracy, old chap. You'll see them play their parts in a few minutes.
You still think the photograph is inside the house?
Yes. It's most unlikely that she carries it around with her. Remember, the king told us it was a large framed picture. Also remember that she planned on using it within a few days. It must be somewhere she can lay her hands on it. It must be inside her house.
But her house has been burglared. Twice.
Ah, they didn't know how to look.
How will you look?
I won't. I'll get her to show me.
Oh, she'll refuse.
She won't be able to. Shh. Here comes a carriage now. Remember, Watson, carry out my orders to the letter.
You can trust me. Good luck.
Plumley, here comes the Duchess of Tiddlywinks. Let's put out a carpet. She might get her little tootsies wet.
I'll put a sock in it, Alfie.
Leave him alone. She ain't no better than she ought to be.
Boo.
Please, let me through. I live here.
Well, ain't that nice? We'll all come in and have a cup of cocoa.
Yeah, where's my cup?
Where's my cup of cocoa?
Here's my cup of tea.
Move out of the way, please, and let the lady through.
Mind your own business. Just 'cause your collar's turned around the wrong way don't mean you can spoil our fun.
That's right, Hattie. Keep your nose out of it, Parson.
Stop shoving, will ya?
Please, don't fight about it.
Stop molesting the lady, please.
Do ya? Then how are you like a biff on the nose, Mr. Clergyman?
Oh, he hit the poor man and ran away? The coward! Is the clergyman badly hurt?
He hit his head, Mom, as he fell. If you ask me, he's badly hurt.
He's bleeding something terrible.
Can we bring him in, Mom? He can't lay here in the street.
Oh, why, of course. Bring him in.
Right you are, Mom. Here, Pat.
Write it out.
Aw, poor baby. Do you see what happened to him, mister?
Yes, I saw, my good woman. A very
What-
convincing demonstration.
What you mean?
Weren't you paid by a certain gentleman for this performance?
Oh, you knows about it too? You must be a friend of Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, I am.
A nice gentleman. He gives us 5 bob apiece for tonight's work. We ain't through yet, though. We gotta start yelling fire when somebody tells us.
I'm that somebody, my dear lady. There's Mr. Holmes now. He's inside the house.
Yes, he's opening a window.
Now he's raising his hand. That's my signal. Now to throw the rocket. There we are. Fire! Fire!
Fire!
There's a fire!
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 Fire.
Holmes, there you are. You have the photograph?
No, but I know where it is. She showed me, as I told you she would.
Well, I'm still in the dark.
There's no mystery, old chap. When my accomplices started the fire in the street, I had a little moist red paint in my hand. My good friend Alfie pretended to strike me. I clapped my head to my head as I fell down. It's an old trick.
Yes, I understand that. But how did my throwing the rocket help you?
It was all important, dear fellow. When a woman thinks her house is on fire, her instinct is to at once rush for the thing that she values most. A married woman grabs a baby. An unmarried woman reaches for a jewelry box. In this case, of course, it was the photograph.
Where was it?
In a recess in the living room, just above the right-hand bell pull. I caught a glimpse of it as she drew it out. When I made it known that the fire was a false alarm, she replaced the photograph. As soon as I was able to, I advised her that I was feeling well enough to leave.
You didn't take the photograph then?
No, such a move at this stage might ruin everything.
What do we do now?
Drive to the Lingham Hotel and inform His Majesty of what has happened here. Then, return here with him. And after that, my dear chap, the case will be ended.
This is Barney Lodge, Your Majesty.
I am all impatient. Are you certain the photograph will still be there, Mr. Holmes?
I have every reason to believe so, Your Majesty.
I must confess, this is going to be something of an ordeal.
Then I suggest that you let me do the talking, Your Majesty. I think I know how to handle the lady.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I believe.
Yes, I am Mr. Holmes, but how did you know that?
My mistress told me you were likely to call. She already left for the continent.
You mean she's left England?
Yes, sir.
Then the papers and a photograph. Ah, it's all lost.
We'll soon see. Follow me.
Mabla, she said you'd be looking for something. I hope you find it.
This was the bell rope, sliding panel behind it. Uh-huh. Here it is.
Is the photograph there, Mr. Holmes?
There is a photograph, Your Majesty, but it's a photograph of the lady alone. Here's a letter, and it's addressed to me.
What does it say, Holmes?
My dear
My
Mr.
dear
Sherlock
Mr. Sherlock
Holmes.
Holmes, you really did it very well. Until after the fire alarm, I had no suspicion. But then, when I realized how I'd betrayed myself, I began to think. I decided to give you what you wanted, if only for a moment. I had been warned that if the king were to employ an agent, he would certainly employ you. May I congratulate you on your disguise as a dear old clergyman.
Great Scott! She was much more clever than you thought, Holmes.
Yeah, go on. What else does it say?
I knew it was only a matter of time before you would bring the king to my home, so I thought the best recourse was flight. You will find the nest empty. As to the photograph of the king and myself, His Majesty may rest in peace. I leave another photograph, however, he might care to possess, and I remain, dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, very truly yours, Irene Adler.
My, what a woman! What a woman! What a magnificent woman! She fooled me completely. But, oh, I'm sorry, Your Majesty, I've been unable to bring your business to a more successful conclusion.
On the contrary, my dear sir, nothing could be more successful. I know that Irene's word is sacred. The incriminating photograph is not as safe as if it were in a fire.
Well, I'm glad to hear Your Majesty say so.
I am immensely indebted to you. Pray tell me, in what way can I reward you? This burly ring that I wear, I should be proud to.
Your Majesty has something I should value even more highly.
You have to but name it.
This photograph, sir.
Irene's photograph? But certainly. However, you must let me give you something more substantial.
Oh, no, Your Majesty. This is something I should treasure for all my life. It will remind me that I was once tricked by a woman whom I shall never forget.
Then we departed. It was over. And that is how a great scandal was averted. Holmes told me that some 3 years later, he was walking home on a moonless evening.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes,
Miss Irene Adler,
you see through me immediately.
you are more memorable than any disguise.
Am I, Mr. Holmes?
You have need to hide yourself away.
Only for my freedom and entertainment. Will you dine with me, Mr. Holmes?
I must not.
You must not, or you dare not. I have often thought of you.
And I of you.
In a world of patterns, you are an original.
Not perhaps so much as yourself.
Do you believe all things to be a matter of fortune and time?
The opposite. I believe all things to have logic, and with effort and deduction can be clearly understood.
I deny logic quite regularly.
And I cannot. It is my passion and my profession.
A life of impenetrable logic. How dreadful.
It has its many fascinations.
It must. Most men would dine with me.
For some men, it would only be dinner. I must go.
We will not meet again, Mr. Holmes.
You may be sure I already regret it.
I adore you.
And I you. Good evening.
Goodbye, Sherlock Holmes.
Gee, Doctor, that Miss Adler was quite the charmer.
Yes, I'd say so. Holmes indeed kept the lady's picture. One would suppose, on occasion, he looks at it.
Dr. Watson, would you say that Holmes struggled with this particular case? Perhaps he faced surprising difficulty?
Well, I suppose you could say that Miss Adler put up quite a fight. I suppose Holmes may have to do some thinking.
Indeed, and perhaps he could do it at High-Tech High Mesa's The Unfinished Project exhibition. There he can reflect on the many challenges he had faced, while ninth grade students of Team Bow share their own reflections.
What a wonderful idea.
Join the Unfinished Project on March 17th and 18th. Visit High-Tech High Mesa art teacher David Smith digital portfolio for more details. Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was performed live and was adapted from the radio drama written by Denis Greene and Anthony Boucher, based on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, A Scandal in Bohemia. This episode was directed by Damon J. Shearer and assistant directors Mitchell Long and Cameron Sinclair. With special thanks to Foley artist Ellie Maitland, please take a moment to complete the survey linked in the description below. We would love to hear from you. Join us tomorrow for more thrilling Sherlock Holmes story with Murder in the Casbah at 4:30 and The Case of the Dead Adventures at 5:30, right here on Lemonade TV. This has been a High-Tech High Mesa production.